Don't worry, this isn't really typical for me either. Kind of out of my comfort zone here, but I don't care because a movie came out and it might just be one of my favorite movies of all time. And that's Transformers 1. I just wanted to express my raw emotions on the internet, as you do. Start off, I'm not really a professional here, I watched Diamond Vault, Jobby, and Emperor Kumquat growing up. I sometimes still do. I grew up with the movies, some games, and even like Prime and animated. And as a Prime fan, this movie slaps. Okay, so off the bat, let me just preface this by saying that the trailers did not do the tone of this movie any justice. They cherry picked all of the family friendly jokes, basically made it look exactly like how Elemental was, kind of like a watered down kids film of the rise of the war between the Autobots and Decepticons. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's arguably darker than Prime. Yes, as the characters grow, the tone shifts, reveals are made that completely shift where the characters' mindsets are. That's when it goes from a family film to a sci-fi epic, and I was all there for it. Could not believe what I was seeing. I'm not going to spoil anything. It's just going to be some quick thoughts and then off to the races. The thing is, I really love the character work first and foremost. Well, the setting itself is beautiful, right? You have shifting mountains, because of course, why wouldn't you have shifting mountains? Cybertron is alive. There's like in-universe reasons. There's always a reason for why they are where they are. This isn't half-baked in any sense. The lore for this entire universe is built from the ground up, and that is the setting. And you'd think that'd just be standard, but nowadays you kind of have to hope and pray that this movie doesn't break its own rules. And I'd like to say that it doesn't. It does take a few liberties, but they are self-contained within the continuity. For one thing, mass shifting is 100% a thing in this universe. It's not named or anything, and you're not going to see anything ridiculous like Soundwave turning into a 4x3 cassette tape, but you're going to see characters are going to become bigger, and they're not going to come from like getting heaps of scrap like Optimus did in Revenge of the Fallen. They're just going to get bigger, and then certain weapons are just going to come out of nowhere, which is cool. It makes things flow well. It also helps with the action. The action, imagine the pace of Spider-Verse, but it feels like all the characters have the posability of 360 ball joint. They essentially do that, and it's really awesome. When it comes to characters, there are only five fully fleshed out players. You have the main four and then Sentinel. The other characters are more of a backdrop. It's not as though they don't have things to do or they have their moments like Starscream, Soundwave, Shockwave, Arachnid, Jazz, Those characters, they do have roles and lines and they do stuff surrounding the main five. But the thing is, when it comes to characterization, you could definitely tell that they knew what story they wanted to tell, and it was with these five characters specifically. So I'm gonna go into them, well, not in depth, just enough for you to know like where they are and where they are going to go, but nothing that will reveal anything from the plot or how those changes come about. Hard to really talk about the main characters, that being Orion and D16, without talking about them together, but I'll try my best. But they really do mirror each other, which is why this is going to be so hard. Orion Pax in this movie, he's essentially an optimistic dreamer because in this universe he is a minor, at least a few other characters that you would recognize as Autobots with D16, and he essentially is this Rapunzel slash Luke Skywalker type figure where he wants better for where he is, he wants better for the people around him. He's a go-getter. He's not just standing by a windowsill and looking up at the sky like, I wish things would be better, waiting for something to happen to him. No, he makes the plot happen. He drives the plot. He's still the type of guy to lay down his life with those around him, even people who are essentially coworkers. He sees as family because they're all in the same boat, which is sinking, by the way. In this movie, maturity leads to the chain of command. So in this movie, at the beginning, he's not at the head of the chain of command. That goes to Alita because she's naturally more mature. But as he matures farther past her, that will actually shift, and that's how he becomes the leader. That's how the people around him start rallying behind him because he's already likable. You know, you're already going to find him endearing. But when he finally, like, when his balls drop, like, it's becomes like, no, duh, we will follow him. D16 kind of has the inverse arc, where believe it or not, at the beginning, he is the straight man in the duo, where while Orion is dreaming, D16 is like, no, this is too dangerous. No, we have a work to do, we have schedule, we have something to build towards, we have something that's tangible, right? This is how he is. Of course, that's not to say he won't have his brother's back because, bro, they are homies in this. A quarter way in, you're like, man, I don't want them to fight. He's essentially the friend you grew up in high school that you still have contact with. They are essentially roommates, although all of them are, but those two especially have each other's back. He's always covering for Orion when he's off on his antics, and Orion always has his back and is always keeping in with his interests, you know? Because D16, the way that his ideology works is that the primes are essentially seen as celebrities, right? Not just leaders, but you also have tokens of them, kind of like heroes. So the Decepticon symbol at the beginning doesn't mean what you think it is. It actually is literally just a face of his idol, and Orion supports that. So that's how they support each other in this, you know? Orion supports D16's ideals, and D16 keeps Orion grounded. So that's really cool. And the way this breaks them apart is that, again, the story goes from comedy to epic. So when that shift happens, that's when their ideologies start tearing them apart. Alita 1 is an evolution of the motorcycle archetype. From Prowl to RC to Alita 1, she's essentially by the book the character in this movie. Later on, as everyone's evolving, right, you see Optimus become more mature, Megatron become more morally gray. When it comes to Alita 1, she goes from the leader to the anchor, you know? Instead of leading Orion, she is anchoring what would become Optimus. And it's really awesome. It shows that a lot of these characters aren't really one note. She's not just stern, but she also gives like empathy while also being weirdly intimidating. She has that kind of edge to her, so it's really cool. Bumblebee is, for lack of a better term, a lot. There are in-universe reasons for why he is the way he is. Let's just say he doesn't get out much, but he is a lot. He is funny, and he definitely does get his badass moments. But there will be moments where you kind of want Meg to rip his voice box out. I'm not gonna lie to you. So your endearment towards this version of B is probably going to depend on age, but I find him endearing, so he's cool. And then we have Sentinel. When I heard that Sentinel was going to be in this film, I was thinking between somewhere, is he going to be an elitist asshole like animated, or is he going to be more genocidal tyrant like in Dark of the Moon? And the answer to that is yes. Yes to all of that, plus prime Starscream levels of charisma. With that description in mind, go see the movie. He is a goated asshole. Trust me. The musical score for this movie is nothing short of godlike. The trailer, once again, hindering how this movie should be perceived. They don't use any, I should say, radio tracks or any tracks of that sort. They actually make their own scores, plus using some motifs from Transformers continuities of the past. I heard that the composer for this movie was actually the same composer that did Prime, and my God, does it show. If you know, you know, and if you don't, look out for the cave scene. You will know it when you hear it. I really love how they handle references in this movie. It's not as pace breaking or immersion breaking as some movies like maybe Marvel. These are what I like to call professional references. If you don't know what I mean by that, you'll essentially in this movie you will see something and then go, "Is that but there's no pace break. The plot is still going, so it's a blink and you miss it. It's all in service of the plot and all in service of longtime Transformers fans for recognizing it. At least 99% of the movie is completely 100% original, which means that this isn't a movie that's going to just use your nostalgia. This is a movie that you could envision 10, 20, 30 years later for being nostalgic for. Because of my geographic location, not only did I get to see this movie early, but I saw it in Spanish. So the next compliments I'm going to be giving to the Spanish cast, it could also extend to the English cast. I did hear from other early viewers who've seen like any early English views that the English voice actors did a phenomenal job, but the compliments I want to give next are for the Spanish voice actors. They really knocked it out of the park. Even if I couldn't understand every single word, like I couldn't understand every fifth word they were saying, the movement of the characters' faces, because they're really good with emoting with their body, coupled with the tone of voice, meant that I wasn't missing out on any crucial information. I knew exactly what every character was saying, what they meant, what their motivation was. It got across all the information needed. I think the only flaw with this is that I couldn't really tell you if this movie had a dialogue problem. Again, Bumblebee was that type of guy during the movie, but even if he wasn't too grating, I couldn't really tell you the nuance because I saw it in Espanol. Okay, so that was my non-spoiler review for what is arguably the greatest Transformers movie ever. I think there's only real competition if you include the 1986 film and Predacons Rising. Other than that, it is quite handedly the best Transformers movie we've seen in theaters thus far. I was already looking forward to this movie. I thought it would just be a bit of a fun time with a few callbacks. I was not going into this movie expecting Exodus level writing, but here we are. I do want to again add on to the good news saying that they do plan on making this a trilogy, although I do hope they make this a non-trilogy. But yeah, we are going to be seeing more movies in this universe. But I'm pretty sure after this whole universe wraps up, we are never going to see another movie like this ever. I've kind of been burned. I'm going to take every movie I consume now as it is. We are never guaranteed another good film after watching a good film. So I hope for the best of this coming trilogy, Transformers 2 and 3 better slap, and then we're probably never going to see a movie like that trilogy ever again. Hell, we may not even see a sequel like this movie ever again. We are never guaranteed greatness. So yeah, go watch this movie. Go show them that we love this style. We love this storytelling. And yeah, that was my review. Dark Dive out.